Hey folks, Jonathan here. Okay, I want to show you a few things that I've been working on and that I got in, actually some engines and stuff, that and give you the history on them for anybody that cares about the history anyway. So Camaro, I'm going to do more on it. I've got a bunch of videos on this, you know, a few on the engine, the car, different things, and I'm going to be posting them soon. So what we got is a 350 4-bolt main, mid-70s engine, steel crank. Got 461 double hump heads, which are the Fuelie style heads, 1964. Offenhauser intake that somebody gave me because it was about destroyed. Went through and redone it. Got old school Mickey Thompson valve covers. Everything about it's old school. Carburetors are not. Now these are, you're not supposed to be able to use these carburetors on a 3-deuce setup. Because the fuel inlets where they're at. So I've done a lot of machining on the back of the carburetors, and I'll show you all that too. And just done a lot of work to them to make them fit. These are Chinese carburetors, $60 a piece. That's why I done it. I was trying to, you know, not spend a lot of money, but it runs out good. We just got to do, you know, a few little things, and I'll show you as they go. But I want to show you a few engines and stuff. All right. Okay, speaking of old school car stuff, I just walked by this. This is some stuff that I had picked up that was in storage for a long time from somebody and didn't want it to get scrapped. So just an early model 4-jet Rochester intake. Not sure what year. I didn't even see a date code on it, but it's on there. I just can't read it. Well, this would have run the early Rochester carburetors. So this was probably 62, 63 up through there. Front oil fill, would have had a non-PCV valve and just a road tube, we call them. So aluminum intake, GM factory. It does have a place for the EGR valve and nothing special. Probably, you know, I'd say early 80s. You know, by the mid 80s they was fuel injected, so I'd say maybe early 80s. So just kept it because I didn't want to see it get scrapped. And then this intake, which is a really weird intake. This is something a little different. Offenhauser, which, you know, is anything Offenhauser is going to be vintage anyway, but called a dual port intake. And if you can see the ports on this intake, normal ports like all the other ones, and this is not like that. Okay, so you got one set of runners that are way lower than the other. The primaries go all the way to the bottom, the secondaries stay higher. And this is different. So the primaries come out of the bottom of the port and the secondaries come out of the top of the port. So I don't see how this could be efficient, but I can see how it'd be hard to cast. It would be, there's a plate all the way across inside of it, so this would be a hard casting to make. But it's called a dual port 360 manifold, and you know, they somewhere in the 80s, I think, is when they made this. But seen an advertisement on it, but it does have the front oil fill, and it may be older than the 80s, but I think I seen it in a 1987 catalog. You would think this thing would be in the 70s, but I don't think it is. So anyway, just thought it was neat. I thought the ports were neat. You know, wanted to save it, and we'll go from there with it. All right. Okay, Cooper Bessemer and Lufkin. I guess Lufkin was involved in this one, and I'm assuming that it was the Lufkin tape company. They've had their hands in a lot of stuff. Okay, natural gas engine. Would have been used probably in an oil field. 2-cylinder, 725 cubic inches, and good size engine. I think it's about a 7.5 inch bore, 9 inch stroke, something like that. But anyway, so all these engines, you know, they're odd. They have different little things about them that make them, you know, what they are. And I'm going to come around the other side and show you what I like about this one. Okay, so this engine here is actually right around 6 foot tall to the top of the head. So I mean, this is a good size engine. So you can see the big 4-bolt main or 4-bolt rod cap caps on it, and the crankshaft. Now it looks like there's the piston, but it's not. Pistons are up there. This has got a crosshead like a steam engine. So all of your side play goes on your crosshead, and your pistons never have any side play. They go straight up and down. And this is a 2-cycle engine. This is not a 4-cycle. So just neat. Water pump. It's got an oil pump. got a governor. It's got a magneto. Somebody put a Bosch magneto on it. I don't know that that's right, but maybe sometime. I bought this. It was actually yard art, and I bought it again for less than scrap price. And I was really afraid somebody was going to get it because it was enough less than scrap price that somebody could have snatched it up and took it straight to the junkyard and made some money. So I wanted to save it. I've got the cover. I pulled it just to check it. Of course, it's stuck, but I think it could be worked with. So this was air start. You would have had to have an air compressor to crank it over. And then, like I said, run natural gas. I think it's 600 RPM. And it's only 60 horsepower, but, you know, good torque. And this is the kind of engine they would have started and, you know, ran for months and months at a time. It was self-sufficient, and since it was taking the natural gas directly from the ground to run it, it really didn't have to be real efficient. And I guess it's the closest thing to a perpetual motion engine you're going to find if you're getting the gas out of the ground to run the engine, and it's all, you know, self-contained. So anyway, nice engine, 1938 model. So it's not, you know, it wasn't made yesterday. We'll maybe get into this someday. For now, we saved it. It's not going to scrap, and, you know, we'll pickle it and, you know, put it up. So, all right, let me show you a couple more. Okay, here's our next engine. I really like this engine. This is a Struthers Well Company engine made in Warren, Pennsylvania. Shows to be 15 horsepower. This is steam. This is not gas. It's not natural gas. It's not propane. It's not diesel. It's straight steam. So this was an oil well drilling engine. It didn't go on a well to pump. It went on to drill because it's got reverse on it. Now, the well company, Struthers Well Company, was in business for a lot of years. But what makes it special for me on this engine is the partial and steel general agents in Warren, Pennsylvania. So the only mention of that company is for 2 years, basically, and that's 1889, 1890. So this is how early this engine is. And I really think it's neat, the fact that you see the build-up. Now the engine's not stuck, so we could have this thing running. All the build-up, all the oil. This thing is just like it was when it come out of the oil field from running, you know, or drilling the well. Actually on an oil well skid. So, you know, it was made to drag around and move around. Really neat engine. The reverse is what I really like about it, and I'll show you how that works in there in a second. But flywheel is cracked. Okay, and these flywheels, a lot of them, they actually had a bolt-on ring, that's what that hole's for, to actually add weight to this flywheel. And so luckily, the estate that this came from, that I bought it from up in Pennsylvania, actually the guy evidently was prepared. So we've got an extra flywheel that's in perfect condition, and we have the ring to go on it to actually add the weight. So we're going to be putting this thing back together here real soon and getting it under steam and running it. This was already busted. It got busted worse during transit, but it was missing a piece, and I think I've actually got one of these to replace it. But this is called a driller's wheel, and I think they had a rope around it where they could change the speed with a rope. Now reverse. So the way it's set up now, we're using this eccentric. So the rod goes back one eccentric. Well, you got another eccentric that when you shift it to that eccentric. So now we're using the bottom eccentric, and that's all that does. One of them's for forward, one's for reverse, and just depends on which one you use. Really neat. The only engine like this I've got that's got reverse on it, you know, big engine, and really neat engine. And like I said, oil drilling, and 1890 to 1889, 1890, right around in there. Really nice. So, all right. Okay, along with the Struthers Well engine, we've got this Erie steam shovel engine that come in. Okay, this is actually a 2-cylinder would have been in an area steam shovel, and this, you know, could have operated any part of the bucket. Cables could come in and out. It's a 2-cylinder. The thing about these engines are the crankshaft is not 180 degrees. I think it's like 130, 120, something like that. So that way, no matter where you stop at, you can restart, and you can restart forward or backwards. And this lever on the side is what adjusts that. Now, these are not pretty engines. You know, there's nothing fancy or anything about this engine, but it's still, you know, an old engine, early, you know, 1900s, maybe 1920. You know, 1930 would be stretching it, would be, you know, the latest I'd say it would be. But this engine's not stuck. I think we'll have it under steam and fired up, and 100% probably a display engine, but neat as can be. I like it. And we got another one here. Okay, so this is a Soule engine, which is spelled S-O-U-L-E, and this is, they made a lot of these engines, believe it or not, but this is another Southern made engine, made in Mississippi. And this steam engine, the company that built it, which is the Soule Steam Engine Company, they was the last steam engine company to be still in business in the United States. They built this engine, this exact design, up until 1981, which is pretty amazing. And if you go on and look at, I think A-Bomb done a video at the factory. Every year they have a show at the factory now. So they closed it down, of course, but they still do the same stuff that they done back then. They just do it once a year. So there's still some parts available for these. I've got all the parts and extra parts for this one. I've got 2 sets of pistons, a lot of extra oddballs, you know, parts and stuff. This was actually a friend of mine's dad. It was his engine. He passed away years ago, and it was up in Pennsylvania, and I was able to acquire it, and hopefully we're going to be able to put it back together and make it operate. And this is they're really smooth running engines, and again, they're not 180 degrees out, so they actually start at any location. They can change direction under power. So this would have run a sawmill carriage, the left and right. You know, it would run it down and run it back, and then you can change it while it's moving. This is the rod for that, and goes right into the valve. And I've got steam chests and valves and covers and heads, and I got, like I said, 2 sets of pistons. So we've got everything we need to put this engine back together, and that's absolutely the plans. So we're going to try to get it, you know, steamed up, and it'll be displayed, but we're going to run it on steam. Okay, here's a Pennsylvania air compressor. Looks like an engine, looks a lot like a steam engine, but it's not. This would have had an electric motor on top and ran, you know, 4 or 5 belts, or I guess 6 belts. Air cylinder, 6 inches for the bore, 5 inches for the stroke, 110 psi and 400 RPM. So we got to have some stuff to run off of the steam engines also, so that's why we've got this. Now, I just like the looks of it. We'll take the bracket off for the motor, and we'll just, you know, run belts on it. It's not stuck, anything like that. The price was right on it, because the mechanical lubricators, I bought the whole unit for probably less than what I could have sold the mechanical lubricator on eBay. Let's just put it that way. At least less than what they're asking for them. So I think it'll be a good one, and we'll get back on it. And I will also be showing everybody how we roll a tube in and how we get them out on this boiler. And I got to find me a 1-inch round brush to get these things cleaned out. And I'm burning pine, which is not the recommended thing to burn anyway, but on a boiler, a lot of people have always burnt pine slabs, and it burns good and hot and fast, and you get a good fire from it. So they'll work. We just need to keep them clean. Probably every 2 firings, it looks like I'm going to have to come in here and clean it out, and which is fine. So, all right. Okay, folks, I figured we'd bring the Struthers well engine, or Struthers well and company engine, Warren PA, 15 horsepower. I believe we figured we'd bring it up here and see what we can do with it. I want to show you what they had done. They made this steel ring to go around it, because of the crack, and they ran it that way. Like I said, the guy that owned this thing evidently, or somebody hunted up a flywheel for it, and that extra flywheel ring, so we will be changing that eventually. But I wanted to check this thing out good and see how it looked. You know, we're going to need some babbits here and there, and I mean, we can test it, but I think the babbit's going to be redone there. You know, I'm almost tempted not to clean it. I don't know. I kind of like it like it is. It is about as an original as you can find when it comes to still being dirty. And you know, this thing, evidently they kept it oiled pretty good, because all that would have been oil and grease and packed up. And of course, it's been sitting in the woods for years and years. But just like most of the steam engines you find, for some reason, beautiful inside the cylinder. Don't see any issues there. We're looking at about an 8-inch bore, I think, and maybe a 9. But yeah, you know, it's crazy what it comes out to be. And it looks like we've got sealer on there. So cylinder's been taken off late enough to have sealing on it instead of a gasket. So somebody's put it on there. So it's moving, but it's not rolling over good. I think a lot of it's this rod, so we're going to clean this rod off, and I've got some oil. We're going to get everything oiled up, maybe loosen these crossheads up and let it slide a little easier. This used to go forward and back. I don't know what was bolted here, what kind of operation it ran, but it ran something, and we'll have to check it out. Somebody wedged the nail in there to get this even tighter. When it looks like that, it probably should have just been driven farther down, but this bearing is loose, so it may need machined, or we may need to build one out of brass. I don't know. May just need to do a little work to it to try to get it tightened up. Nice engine otherwise. Don't see any major issues, major breaks or anything. Got a rope around the crankshaft, and that might have been the driller's wheel rope that got off and got caught in it somehow. But eccentrics seem to be good. Don't see any issues with them. Alright folks, we pulled the side cover too. I don't like taking chances on starting this stuff up without at least getting it cleaned out, but I thought that we had metal chunks in there, and turns out we have nut chunks. Chunks of nuts, that's all it is. No metal, little creamy stuff. Now Andy, a friend of mine, actually delivered this from Pennsylvania for me, and he put oil, or put transmission fluid in it and put the cap back on it. So oiled it up for me while it was up there, because it stayed up there for about a month. Now see, that's loose. It's supposed to be that way. These should be locked together where it can't move, but so all that needs to be redone, tightened up. We'll get this cleaned out, and of course we're going to get the rods cleaned up, and then we'll try to turn this thing over. And if you look, it's shiny. There's nothing wrong with that. I have been so lucky, but possibly not lucky, possibly just blessed that these things that I've been getting have been really nice inside. I mean, you would think that they'd be rusted out and stuck and all the pieces inside after sitting in the weather. Andy said he put the sealer around there, that it just had some kind of dope around it, but at least they had it plugged off. I mean, they saved this engine, and you know, I'm sure they didn't know it, but you know, this engine's probably going to it's going to either be running as a backup with my other little generator, or it's going to be restored and running and still a backup from a little generator. So I really want to run this engine, and I think it'd be a neat one to run. So we don't really need the reverse, but we've got it, and that it's a good teaching tool to show people how reverse works on them. Just change it from one eccentric to the other. It's pretty simple, and you know, it's not complicated at all. It's just doubling up on everything. So all right, we've got some oil, we've got some Marvel Mystery Oil, and we're going to go ahead and get her cleaned up. Now I'm using Marvel Mystery Oil because you know, as you know, I'm a wrecker driver, and I get a lot of junk cars, a lot of wrecked cars. A lot of stuff that people don't have insurance for, and I end up stuck with them. Well, I got stuck with a vehicle that had a quart of Marble Mystery Oil from a long time ago. Now I'm going to keep the can, but I will use the contents. And no use saving the contents for historical purposes. Alright, let's get at it. Okay folks, I'm going to roll it over here in a minute, and we've got it to where it rolls over good. I just got to do a lot of cleaning, getting these nuts tightened up and this thing timing adjusted on it. I'm going to try to get a wheel on it, a driller's wheel. I was going to tell you what the way this works. Like I said, you could put a rope around this and operate it, you know, from a distance or a different spot, but this would not have had a governor. This would have just had this driller's wheel. This would have been a oiler. This is reverse, and the reason you wouldn't have a governor is because you're going to be speeding the engine up, slowing it down. You know, you're actually using this for drilling a well. So you can sort of think of it like a winch engine, to where, you know, you're going to be running a winch up and down. So anyway, that's why it was, you know, done that way with no governor. We're not going to run a governor, and, you know, if we do, it'll be later. And I can get a 2-inch governor that would actually screw down in there and run it, or bolt right on. So there's no, if you look, there's no pulley on this thing to run a governor, and so you know, have to compensate for that. But we're gonna fire it up and run it before we swap the flywheel out. As you can see, this ring, I don't know if I showed this before, but this steel ring was made to put over top to take care of that crack, and I'm sure it was ran that way probably for years with that ring on it. Probably a blacksmith made ring. And let's roll her over here. Yeah, I don't even see any welds on it. I mean, it sort of looks seamless. Could have been hammered out by a blacksmith, and well, actually right there you go. That looks like a forge weld to me. When you start seeing an overlap like that, I believe that's probably what that was. And the guy that made that probably was a wheelwright or something like that made these bands for the wheels. So neat. Hopefully I can get that off without destroying that and just leave it, and that'll be a good, you know, piece to show people that, you know, how they fix stuff. We've already got the I've plumbed it in, and it runs right over to where I had the plug at, to here. Appreciate everybody watching. Till next time, bye.